Hi, Everett Farnell here, and welcome to CelticWealth.com, first of all. And we're going to talk a little bit today about guilt and why guilt is such a horrible emotion. You know, I've been listening to I spend a lot of time listening to a lot of self-improvement stuff. Sometimes I listen to it just to see what kind of ridiculous trite these people are spewing on you. Other times I listen to it because some people have some good stuff to say. I rarely find, as a matter of fact, let me edit that, I never find where I agree 100% with somebody. Now, your mileage may vary. But I was listening to somebody the other day, a well-known self-improvement guy, and he was talking about how guilt is important. Although you have to, it gives you feedback for when you're violating your own values. So you do something and you feel guilty about it, and then you correct that problem and you don't do it again. And then he says you have to let go of the guilt. But guilt, by its very nature, is not something that you can let go of. That's why it's guilt. Guilt is an artificial construct. Guilt was not known anywhere on the earth in any primitive tribal culture ever. Guilt was a creation of religion. Guilt was a creation of religion. It was a creation of monotheistic religion that wanted to gain control over people, so they said, God knows everything that you do, and when you mess up, God knows it. It was an attempt to pervert shame. Shame is known all over the world, and shame is a community asset. Shame is the way that people keep communities together, and here's how shame works. You do something wrong. The community knows that you did something wrong, and now, shame on you. So they don't want to talk to you, they don't want to deal with you, they don't have anything to do with you because you've done things that are shameful. So now you make it right. You go correct that problem. You go to whoever you violated, whoever you transgressed against. You go to whoever, whatever damage you did, whatever the situation is that brought shame upon yourself, you go fix the situation. Now the community says, oh, look, he fixed it. Welcome that person back into the community. That's the way shame works, and shame is the way that communities stay together, and the way that communities keep a certain level of I don't want to say keep a certain level of values, but shame is the way communities regulate the values amongst each other. That's how shame works. Nothing wrong with shame. Without shame, we wouldn't have communities because people just do whatever the heck they wanted to do. Guilt, on the other hand, says God knows everything that you've done, and no matter what you've done, He knows about it, and He's the only one who can forgive you for it, and you have to come to church in order to be forgiven, or you have to come to temple in order to be forgiven, or you have to come to the mosque in order to be forgiven. Now, can you see where that gives tremendous power to the church, to the temple, and to the mosque? I hope you can. Because, see, now it's not a matter of being part of the community anymore. See, before you would go correct whatever problem you had, be part of the community, boom, there you are, you're off to the races. Now it's, you should feel guilt for every sin that you commit, and every sin that you commit is, you should feel guilt for every sin that you commit. Every sin that you commit, you cannot get any forgiveness from humans for. You have to get forgiveness from God. But nobody can tell you whether you've been forgiven in God's eyes except us. So now you have to come to us, the church, the establishment, in order to get forgiveness. And maybe then we don't even give you forgiveness. Maybe we make you jump through some hoops. Maybe we tell you that we don't know whether you're forgiven. Maybe we dangle a carrot in front of you. But make sure you don't make us mad, because if we kick you out of the church, if we kick you out of the mosque, if we kick you out of the temple, you can gain no forgiveness from God, because you can't talk to God and get forgiveness. You have to get forgiveness from us. And here's the truth. The only person given forgiveness in the church is the person who's running the church. God's not forgiving you for anything, because you don't need to be forgiven for anything. Not on a metaphysical level. What you need to do is you need to figure out which community you're part of, and then you live by the values of that community. So we're all obviously part of a community in the neighborhoods, in the counties, in the cities, in the states that we live in. We're obviously all part of a community there. If you're in the United States, you're part of a greater community as far as the United States is concerned. So when I say state, I'm talking about a state in the United States, and then we talk about the country. Now, if we're talking about outside the United States, a state is the country. It's the same thing. So, so from that point of view, if you live in the United States and you're also part of a country, and there's certain community values that we can say exist within the United States. There are definitely community values that can exist within the state that you live in, whether you're within the U.S. or outside the U.S. And then, of course, we have counties and cities and neighborhoods and etc. And there's all values within at different levels. And you should do your best to live within those values. So you want to go out and killing people. Obviously, you can't do that. You should be shamed if you do that. But as far as guilt is concerned, the only thing guilt does is it makes you relive the situation over and over in your mind. So something happens, you feel guilty about it. Now, if something happens, you feel shamed about it, and then you go correct the situation, and the person who you've transgressed against, or the organization that you transgressed against, forgives you, then you're done. Okay, shame's done. So you commit a crime, you go to jail, you serve your time in jail, you come out of jail. Okay, fine. You've done your time, now it's done. You should not feel guilty about that crime anymore. But if you do feel guilty about it, what happens is you relive that over and over and over in your mind. You relive that incident, you relive that situation. Every time you think about it, you beat up on yourself. You feel bad about it. I feel guilty, I should have never done that. But it's a constant circle. And it's grown out of God knows what you've done. And now you have to beg His forgiveness for it. But how do you know whether God's forgiven you or not? Well, you don't. Particularly if you're not going to church now, because now you don't know whether God's forgiven you about it. So you feel guilty. Oh, I did that, I shouldn't have done it. I did that, I shouldn't have done it. Next day I did that, I shouldn't have done it. Next day I did that, I shouldn't have done it. Each time I did that, I shouldn't have done it. Every time, every day it happens. Every week it happens. Every month it happens. Over and over and over again. And whatever that is, you relive it. So, for example, when I was in 4th grade, we used to play this stupid game. What we'd do is we'd hyperventilate, and then we'd give each other a bear hug. And after the hyperventilation and then the bear hug, whoever was getting the bear hug would fall out, would pass out. Well, I did it several times. Other people did it several times. It was something that, it was a stupid game that elementary school kids were playing. One time I did it to a kid named Greg. And he hyperventilated, and then I gave him a bear hug. And when he passed out, though this time when he passed out, he went a little off kilter, and I lost my balance, and we both fell down. Right, and he hit his head. He was passed out. He hit his head right on the forehead, right on the ground, and banged the hell out of his head. Well, he started going into convulsions, scared the living hell out of me. We were at school. Scared the hell out of me. They took me to the office. Everybody was saying, "Oh, I saw him. He ran into Greg and jumped on Greg. He hit Greg. He did this. He did that." Which I had not. We were playing a game. I had just got done doing the same thing. It just was an accident. So anyway, so the school the school announced no more playing this game, and that was it. And anyway, for probably a week or two afterwards, the school never contacted my mother, which should give you an idea of how important that they figured I didn't do anything wrong. I was just an accident. So the school never contacted my mother. Greg, however, had a concussion. He wasn't in school for a month or so. I felt horribly guilty about it. I eventually told my mom about it a week or two later. She said, "Well, the school never contacted me, so it couldn't have been that big a deal. Don't worry about it, Everett. It's fine." But for years, I felt guilty about this, because every time I thought about this, I thought, I'm the one who did that to that poor kid. For years, I wouldn't talk about it. I just tried to press it down and not think about it. For years, I felt horrible about this mistake that I had made. And now in retrospect, now that I understand what guilt is and where it comes from and how it's an artificial construct, in retrospect, it really pisses me off because the society was imposing this guilt on a child. On a child who was playing a game, who had a mistake, had made a mistake, had an accident. These things happen with kids. Goodness knows I've had problems. Things have happened with my kids where they get a cut or they get a bump or they have some sort of serious injury. Things like that happen. But for years, it took me years to get over this until I understood I understood how ridiculous guilt is. But here's the point. Every time I thought about that for 20 years afterwards, I felt like a piece of shit. I felt like a piece of shit that I had done that to that kid. I was a little boy and I had an accident. And society told me that I should feel guilty about that accident. It cost me a friendship with Greg when I was a child because I couldn't even look at him. I couldn't even see him. It cost me 20 years of angst about it. And it cost me probably, I was 8 years old, so around 28 or 29 is when I really started to get rid of that the guilt about that incident. So from the age of 18 to the age of 28 or 29, that, along with some other things, kept me believing that I was a piece of crap instead of believing that I was an intelligent, well-meaning, able person who could really make a difference in the world. 20 years total, 10 years of my professional life was stunted because of that one incident that happened when I was 8 years old, and it was all about guilt. And here's the thing. There should have been no shame associated with it. The school didn't even call my mom to tell her about it. That's how minor an incident it was from the school's point of view. It was two kids playing a dumb game. The game's not allowed to be played anymore. And there was a mistake. There was an accident, and it was over. And the school figured it was over. But it wasn't over for me for 20 years. That, my friend, that is the power of guilt, and that's what it does to you. So you got to get rid of guilt. You learn how to get rid of guilt in the Celtic Secrets of Wealth Attraction, which is a program I put together to help people attract more wealth into your life. But so if you're interested in that, go ahead, Secrets of Celtic Wealth.com, and it's secretsofcelticwealth.com, and you can pick it up there. Other than that, we'll see you next time.